Was no doubt a friend to many in this room and many watching today. And so I'd like to take a moment of silence to recognize Tom Kelly, please. Thank you. I'd like to now welcome up, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to now welcome up Rotarian Joel Dijkstra, who will conduct today's invocation.
Please bow your heads with me. Our Father, we come to you this morning and we are mindful of the challenges in our city and in our state and throughout our country as we face the pandemic. And we ask, Lord, your blessing on those who are suffering, including our own Tony Knorr, who's tested positive over the weekend. And Lord, we just ask that your mercies and healing would be present, and Lord, that you would guide and direct those who would seek a solution and seek policies that would help to mitigate this virus. And Lord, on another level, we see the continuing strife that's caused by our political divide. Lord, we ask your blessing upon our country. We ask you, Lord, to lead those who lead us, and Lord, give them wisdom as they seek to put together what has been divided. Lord, we ask your blessing on our political system and the two parties, and that somehow, Lord, we would be able to come together and to seek solutions instead of mutual destruction. I ask you to bless us today in our time together here and our food. I ask that you will be with us as we leave this place. Keep us safe until we return. Amen.
I want to thank you, Joel, for a very appropriate invocation. I look forward to the work that the Downtown Rotary Club continues to do to encourage civil discourse so we can find civil and productive solutions. I'd like to take a moment now and ask that any guests that are here with us today to please stand. All right, wonderful. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for being here with us. We have a busy agenda today, but it would be remiss of me to not make note of an important item that plays an important role in the Rotary organization, which is polio. This coming Saturday, October 24th, is World Polio Day. And I think it's worthy of note that the achievement that the Rotary organization has done to eradicate polio across the world really is a shining example of what we can do here locally with our own initiative with Sioux 52 and mentoring. So I do think it's appropriate to call this out and really take note that we as an organization internationally eradicated a disease. And we are now taking on a local challenge that is huge and something that we can no doubt achieve. Angie does have some stickers in the back. I'm wearing one today to note World Polio Day. So if you have a moment when you leave the room, please don't hesitate to take one of those stickers. We'll now turn into the new member introductions or inductions, and we have two of them today. The first one is Bobby Thury, and she will be introduced by Dan Kipley. Dan, come on up.
President Jason and fellow Rotarians, it is my pleasure to introduce one of our newest members, Bobby Thury. As many of you know, Bobby has completed her term as chair of the Greater Sioux Falls Chamber of Commerce. I had the opportunity to meet Bobby early in her year, leading the chamber, and enjoyed her style of leadership. Then, of course, COVID hit. And at our house, we decided we needed to get our act together, and we needed to do some estate planning, and as well as some asset protection planning. We made a few reference calls, and of course, Bobby's name was constantly mentioned. Being a chamber advocate, our decision was easy. Through all this, it became evident quickly that Bobby is an excellent chamber chair and would be an excellent Rotarian. But most importantly now, I am now able to call Bobby a friend. Please welcome one of my newer friends, Bobby, to Downtown Rotary.
Well, thank you so much for having me. We're now doing two of my least favorite things. Number one, public speaking, and then talking about myself. So sorry, guys. Really, I'm an attorney, co-founder of Legacy Law Firm, and we're a boutique law firm. So all we do is planning. We do estate planning, elder law planning, and business law planning. And really what it comes down to, the common denominator is asset protection planning. And we love what we do. But more importantly, want to be purposeful in that planning. And during the pandemic, that's definitely highlighted it. So whether it's helping someone make sure that their family's protected or their business is protected in case of business interruption as far as a business owner passing on. This is it's a tremendous honor to do what I do and to help folks. So as far as me personally, my husband is Chad Thury. He's out of Vera. He actually spoke here a few weeks ago. And then we've got 4 children. Right now they're 9, 8, 6, and 4. So, and I say prayers every day that they can continue to go to school safely. So that's my household. And I guess we also have a 4-legged child. We have a Dane. I refuse to call him a Great Dane because right now he's just a naughty Dane. Hopefully one day he'll elevate though. And then the other thing that I think I'm supposed to speak on is why would I want to be a member of Rotary? And, really, I think we work very hard. We're a small business. And so you can get in the trenches where you're looking down because you're working so hard. And then you don't notice everything going around you. So I think for me, Rotary is an opportunity to look up, to make sure that where I can help, and to be connected to truly exceptional people. I looked at the membership of Rotary and I'm blown away. This is such a relevant organization, and the mission, service above self. I mean, we can accomplish so much more working together than we can ever do independently. So honored to be part of this organization. Thank you for accepting me and look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Bobby. Welcome to Downtown Rotary. I'd like to now introduce Brienne Manor, who will be introduced by Kurt Lounbeck.
Bobby, that was pretty good, Brienne. I think she put the pressure on you. Brienne Manor is a community advocate whose heart belongs in her hometown, Sioux Falls. In fact, Sioux Falls is so hometown to Brienne that she decided to buy the house beside the one she grew up in. So, they say the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, and Brienne's an example of that. In her current role as the executive director for the Zeal Center for Entrepreneurship, Brienne's in the midst of executing on a strategic plan to help further support and connect startups and small businesses to resources, and also acts as the voice and face of the startup ecosystem in Sioux Falls, in front of news cameras, across the web, and of course, face-to-face. Brienne has served in various nonprofit roles in Sioux Falls for over a decade, including the Sioux Falls Jazz and Blues Society and Downtown Sioux Falls, Inc. She's also proud to serve as part of an annual grassroots effort to collect and donate products for the banquet, and also proudly serves as a mentor to women in the community. When the weather permits, you'll likely find Brienne on the bike trails with her husband, Brian. Is there an E on the end of his name like you have? Okay, I thought it was Brienne and Brian. I was confused, but I'm glad to hear that. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying. But the important thing is that together they have a silly, and not just silly, but silly and sweet 3-year-old daughter, Pearl Jane. And if you do see them on the trail, they're probably the ones that are chasing after their puggle, Eddie Money. Take us home tonight, Brienne.
That was amazing. I don't think I have anything else to say. I think that was good. Thank you so much, Kurt. And hello to everyone here today. I just wanted to tell you a little bit about Zeal Center to start. Like Kurt mentioned, we are in the midst of a very exciting time. We have a 6-year strategic plan, 6 because we're in a COVID year right now, so we thought we would go 6. And I'm currently working on building up the team. We are currently looking for different ways that we can connect and educate those in our community that are looking to start their own businesses and kind of redefine what entrepreneurship means for our community. It's not just a tech startup, it's artists, it's doctors, it's retailers, it's everybody. So we just want to make sure that everyone knows that they have a seat at the entrepreneurial table. Some of my team members are here today, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention them. So Peter Hauk is our community manager. We've got Matt Bruxford here, who is our property manager, and a couple of board members as well. So Matt Paulson, Jeff Griffin, Kurt, and a new one, Kayla Ettram, is here as well. So I'm working for like the best team. I'm just so excited to be at the helm of this organization at a really important time for entrepreneurship and small business in our community. We've got some challenges ahead of us, but we also have a 45,000 square foot facility on the northwest side of town where we are supporting entrepreneurs day in and day out. So I guess my ask of you, as long as I have this platform, would be to let people know that we exist and that we have resources, including co-working space, meeting space, and mentorship. I know we keep talking about mentorship on this stage, and it's so very important to continue to tout that message of mentorship. So if anyone here is looking to become a mentor or wants to be mentored, that's something that we also provide. And then lastly, I'm just so excited to be a part of Downtown Rotary. I've attended meetings over the years, I've presented, but I've never actually been an official Rotarian. So I feel like I'm a part of a really powerful club that really gives back big time to this city. And I hope to walk the walk and look to get more involved with this organization as I move forward. So thank you for the warm welcome. Kurt, that was amazing. Thank you so much.
May I just take a moment and thank Bobby and Brienne for joining Downtown Rotary. It's such a privilege to have examples like the two of you as part of this club to help push it forward into the future. So thank you for joining, and thank you, Dan and Kurt, for bringing them into the fold. Kurt and Bobby and Dan, I'd like to have you come on up. We're going to just take a quick picture, then we'll turn it over to Jack.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jack Barsh. I've been a member of this club for many years, former president, and it's always a real privilege to be able to moderate programs like this. I do have a day job, but it's a volunteer job. I'm the co-founder and co-chairman of South Dakota Newswatch, which is an independent nonprofit news organization that does in-depth reporting on serious issues in South Dakota. So again, it's a real privilege to be here today. South Dakota voters on November 3rd will choose among Republicans, Democrats, and independents when they elect all 70 members of the South Dakota House of Representatives and all 35 members of the South Dakota State Senate. How do Democrats and Republicans differ in their state party platforms, their positions on significant issues, their vision for the state, and the caliber of their candidates? Welcome to this discussion of a vision for South Dakota from the perspective of the Republican and Democratic caucuses within the South Dakota State Legislature. I think this is about the fourth or fifth time that we've done a program like this. It's a real opportunity for us to explore where Republicans and Democrats are aligned on issues and where they diverge. Our panelists today, in the middle is Senator Jim Bolin, a Republican of District 16. He serves as the Assistant Majority Leader. And on the end is Representative Jamie Smith, a Democrat of District 15, who is the House Minority Leader. Let's begin with the big issue, COVID, the greatest public health crisis worldwide in 100 years. We are seeing a tremendous surge in the United States, 218,000 dead as of today, 6 million infections, and we're also seeing a major surge right here in South Dakota with 300 people now hospitalized, 8 deaths yesterday alone, a total of over 300 deaths and over 33,000 cases. So right now, we are losing 1%, 1 in every 100 of those who come down with COVID are dying in this state. So it is a major crisis. So my first question deals with how we are responding, the precautions we are taking as a society, as a state, and specifically masking and social distancing. And the question goes to both of you, and that is, what public health measures do you trust, do you support, and do you model? And the context of this is that 2 weeks ago, the state legislature met in special session to consider how to allocate, I think, about $1 billion in CARES Act money in the state. And I wasn't there, but the pictures I saw, the videos that I saw, some were masked and some were not. And generally, it appeared to me that there were more Republicans without masks, and most of the Democrats were with masks. So I asked the two of you, what are the protocols that you think should be followed to keep us safe from this virus?
I'd love to start on that. I believe in masks. I believe in the science behind them. I believe that I don't wear a mask for my protection, however. I wear it to protect you in case I'm carrying COVID. And it's that care for others that my caucus believes in. We made it mandatory in our caucus that if you were going to come into our office, you were going to be wearing a mask. It was not true in the other caucus. We had meetings to set up what the parameters were going to look like for coming into that special session. We asked for masks. It was rejected. It came down to, you'll make the right choice for you. And I would love to have me make the right choice for you as well, and I believe that's important.
Jim Bolin?
Yeah, well, I believe in social distancing, and I do believe in wearing masks, but you talk about the legislature itself, the question really that came to us and was brought to us before the special session was, who's going to be doing the enforcing? Will someone who is duly elected and who will not wear a mask, are they going to be removed? Is that something that's going to be a cause for expulsion or for removal from the legislature? And I think this is a very important issue to talk about, is that how strong are you going to be in mandating a mask in a state as diverse as South Dakota? When you have masks when you have Harding County and Bison, South Dakota, Buffalo, South Dakota, in comparison to Sioux Falls or comparison to Alcester, South Dakota, or Platte, South Dakota, and who's going to enforce that?
Jim, let's put enforcement aside and the mandates aside for a moment. What is the science that you believe, that your caucus believes? What are the precautions that you recommend and that you think should be followed, even if they're not mandated?
Well, I think that people who go into a particular situation have to, probably be wise to wear a mask. But I'm not going to state that we should that should be a mandated situation. It's nice and it's reasonable, but I'm not prepared to go down the road of saying that the government should mandate that.
What about a recommendation?
I think that's a very legitimate thing, that masks are highly recommended, but I mean, at some point in time, then you have to say, is government, if you make a mandate, then there has to be some type of enforcement mechanism. And at that point in time, what are we going to do if somebody is not going to wear a mask? As a farmer, if you put out a statewide ban, as they have in many states, is a rancher in Meade County or in Perkins County, South Dakota, northwestern South Dakota, going to be required to wear a mask when he's out on his tractor all by himself?
So let's talk for a moment about Governor Kristi Noem, who has certainly not wanted to talk at all about mandates or lockdowns or anything else, but she also has questioned even the science that recommends the wearing of masks. How would each of you assess the way the governor has responded in this pandemic, her leadership? Do you think that she has handled herself well, or do you think she has come up short?
I'll start off on that one. I believe she's handled herself well. I'm generally supportive of her policies, and I think that the substantial number of the legislature would be in favor of her policies as well. It comes down to that fundamental question in regards to a statewide mandate in a very diverse state like South Dakota.
Jamie Smith?
I got to go to this, Mike. The governor can do more. She can lead by example, first of all. Masks are very important, I believe. And again, it's not my protection that I'm wearing a mask for. I'm wearing it for you because I care. Leadership can do that by reflecting what it is that you want others' behaviors to look like. And people look to their leaders to make those decisions. The other thing that I think we could have done a better job at as a state and from the governor's office is not deferring that power to every local community when it comes to some of those issues. It got pushed off early on, and I think we could have made stronger statements on that. When it comes to Senator Bolin talking about making a rancher wear a mask on a tractor, Democrats aren't trying to do that. But when you're in a public space, you know, when you're doing those different things, those are mandates that we would support. And we would support the science behind that. I wish early on that we would have known more about that, because there were comments that were made at a national level that hurt us to this day. All right. And people get on that. I like to look at the evidence, not just the evidence that supports what I want, but I like to look at the evidence of what supports the end goal. And the end goal is to reduce COVID numbers. We know masks help.
Change of topic. Let's talk about the American Legislative Exchange Council. It goes by the acronym of Alec. It's a membership organization of state legislators that advocates for conservative causes. It is the source of model legislation that is being introduced in state legislatures throughout the country, including in South Dakota. What is the relationship between Alec and the South Dakota State Legislature? Is that good for our democracy? Is it ethical and appropriate?
I'll take that right off the bat. Alec is a voluntary group. I happen to be a member of it, pay $100 every 2 years to join. Never been to one of their meetings, never brought a bill that they sponsored. They have, at various times, there have been certain legislators who have been very involved in it. At other times, there are legislators, most legislators are not involved. I certainly don't cast my votes based on what Alec says. It's an organization that promotes free market ideas as far as economic issues are concerned. That's its primary goal. But I would say its current influence in the state of South Dakota, the South Dakota legislature at the present time, is minimal. A few years ago, I would say its impact was a little greater than it is today.
Jamie Smith?
You know, Alec does have an influence, and as the House Minority Leader, I'm oftentimes advocating against bills that are brought from Alec. Another area that they do bring bills, though, not just economic, they do bring the social issues. They bring them, I believe, from organizations like that that they try to bring these conservative ideas back and try them out in the state of South Dakota to see if they get traction. Senator Bowen's disagreeing with me adamantly on that, but I know that when they go to these meetings, bills like that come back.
I'll just say this. Alec does not deliberately stays away from social issues. They are not a group that gets involved. There's many other groups that do, but not Alec.
Okay.
They stay away from those issues.
And that might, very well, I'm not a member of Alec.
One of the major differences between the parties historically has been your position on taxation. At one time, the Democratic Party was pushing an income tax. Of course, the Republican Party has resisted that. Looking at taxation overall, where should taxation policy, where should we maintain the status quo and where should we make changes? Be it different exemptions for sales tax, the way that we assess ag land, the bank franchise taxes. What should we maintain and what should we consider changing?
I'd like to start with that question. I think that's a fundamental difference between our caucuses. And one of the things that we want to do is exactly the question you just asked. We want to be able to sit down and study that entire process, because the way that we collect taxes in the state of South Dakota, it's piecemeal. We pulled in this, we pull in this, we pull in this, and we have a system that it's full of all these little pieces that make up what our tax structure is today. We have brought bill after bill, Representative Ray Ring, year after year, to just try to get a study done. And we can't do it. Who should be exempt from paying taxes is one of the questions we want to ask. We believe that we shouldn't tax food. We believe it's fundamentally not something. We bring that every year as well. But we'd love a study to find out the answer to that question. The Republicans will not let us do it.
Joe Boland?
Yeah. I think the current tax system for the state of South Dakota actually works reasonably well. There's no perfection in it. I've had conversation with legislators, and it's interesting to see how things operate in different states. I've had conversation with legislators from the state of Montana, which, by the way, has no sales tax, but has an income tax. And some people in Montana like that, and other people think that's foolish, and they think that they should model their state revenue basis more on the state of South Dakota. Our sales tax generates approximately 65% of the income for the state. And we have a very expansive sales tax, includes about everything, includes electricity, a host of different things. But it has served the state of South Dakota well, and I believe that the fact that the Republican Party, the legislators from the Republican Party, and that the election of the last 11 elections for governor in this state have resulted in the Republicans winning is in a sense a tacit endorsement of the current system, which I believe works reasonably well for the state. We're a low tax, low service state, and that's just who we are.
Medicaid reimbursement, and I'm speaking specifically to service providers, hospitals, nursing homes, human services organizations like Children's Home Society. We saw a crisis here in South Dakota just in the last couple of years with nursing homes closing down, consolidating, because they said the reimbursement rate through Medicaid was insufficient to cover their costs. And I know there are other service providers that say the same thing. Is it time to increase Medicaid reimbursement to these service providers?
I don't know if we're going to disagree necessarily on this. I think we both believe that there is a crisis, or has been. We did something to fix it, but we also know that we didn't do everything that we needed to do, and that was an ongoing thing. We had an agreement that this was a beginning, not the end, of where we need to go to solve that problem.
Is there alignment here, Jim?
I would say that there's a general alignment with that, but we must always recognize that if you're not going to tax a lot, you're not going to be able to spend a lot. And if you're not going to be able to spend a lot, you're not going to be able to do a lot necessarily. So we want to do more, as much as we possibly can to help our nursing homes out. But as with just about everything in life, there has to be some limitation in a state that requires balancing budget.
What about Medicaid expansion? That is broadening eligibility for Medicaid benefits. You know, is there alignment there as well?
I'm not sure where Senator Bolin is. I can tell you where my caucus is, and we are all for that Medicaid expansion. I know that as a business person, anytime I can invest $1 and get 10 back, I'm going to do it. All right, and we have
You're
to
referring to the federal assistance that would
Yep.
come along with that?
correct. And so the other thing on that, we have over 50,000 South Dakotans that don't have access to healthcare. All right, they do. They go into the emergency room and things like that, which is very, very expensive. All right, if we can take care of primary care for people, we know we can do things about that. We were very close to having this done before I made it into the legislature 4 years ago. It was very close. When President Trump won the election, first time I ran that I was supporting Governor Dugard's plan as a Democrat for Medicaid expansion. That did not happen. As soon as President Trump won, we were done talking about that topic. I know that topic's being talked about still today, and if we can't get it done legislatively, I have a feeling that'll go to the ballot.
Jim Bolin, is it
No.
time to expand Medicaid?
No, it's not. There'll be a 30, perhaps $35 million hit to the South Dakota state budget. And where's that money going to come from? Where's it going to come from? It takes a 2/3 vote of the legislature to raise taxes. And there's not going to be another tax increase. So that will come directly out of schools and perhaps Medicaid and reimbursement to nursing homes that they're currently getting, or other issues as well. And I would just say this to Representative Smith, my friend. I don't think that proposal that Governor Dugard was thinking of bringing, he never officially unveiled it. I don't think that would have passed the House of Representatives in 2016, when I was a member at that time. But no, I'm not in favor of Medicaid expansion, and I'm not in favor of another tax increase to pay for it. You have to remember, 2014, we voted on a sales tax in South Dakota as to whether or not we would increase the sales tax 1% to benefit schools and Medicaid. It was rejected, 43% yes, 57% no by the public. And I do believe, but I do agree with Mr. Representative Smith, it probably will be on the ballot in 2022, and then the public will get to speak and we'll get to evaluate it at that time.
So let's talk about teacher pay. Under Governor Dugard's administration, we actually passed a half-penny sales tax specifically to make our teacher pay in this state more competitive so we could attract the best and the brightest, retain the best and the brightest. How are we doing there? Do you think that half-penny sales tax is being well used? Should it be maintained?
I'll take that one. I'm a retired school teacher. I voted for it in 2016. I thought it was the right thing to do. I believe it's being used effectively. Average teacher pay in South Dakota increased by between $5,000 and $6,000 in districts across the state. So I supported it. I think, again, I'm in favor of it, and it's being used effectively.
Jamie Smith?
Senator Bolin and I will agree on this one. I don't think that all of his caucus would. All of my caucus would. I think his caucus is, and they may in the Senate. I know they won't necessarily in the House. Now, the other piece of that, we have to make sure that we do what we said we were going to do, though, with that. And I believe that we've fallen about 0.5% behind what the Blue Ribbon Task Force recommended. This year, we stayed strong, 2% for schools. The governor came out with 0. Legislatively, we said 2% for schools. We stuck to it and we got it. That was but it hasn't happened every year that we followed that rule.
But general alignment between the two of you on that issue.
For sure. Education is very important.
Let's talk about early childhood education, access to early childhood education. Do you think that that public tax dollars should be invested in supporting pre-K education to some extent?
Let me take that one first. I represent a district that has 5 or 6 different school districts within it, and many of them have, at their own expense, these programs. But one thing they want it locally organized, locally managed, and locally funded. There are school districts in this state who have pre-K programs, but they do not want state mandates, and they want to run the program on their own. So, and there's not one thing in South Dakota law at the present time that prohibits a school district. For instance, one in my area is the Alcester-Hudson School District from running a pre-K program. And my statement on this is, if Alcester-Hudson can do it, Sioux Falls can as well. And I'll leave it at that.
Jamie Smith?
Early learning is is vital to our success and making sure that all kids come to school ready to learn. And the Democrats have brought forward a bill to make sure that we have an early learning advisory council. We're not asking for money except for to learn what that structure would look like, to help areas perhaps do exactly what Senator Bolin is saying, to get out there, to make that model, to give districts help. We don't know exactly what it would look like, but we know that we have lots of kids sitting on waiting lists that want early learning. They cannot afford it. You know, I'm willing to sit down and talk about all the different options when it comes to pre-K education, but we need to be having the discussion and we don't want it to be shut down.
So I sense some alignment here.
Some alignment.
Some.
If you want pre-K education, move to Alcester.
School choice. Is it time to move ahead aggressively with school choice? That is public support of private schools, whether it be through vouchers or charter schools.
I'll take that one as well.
Jim Bolin.
When my early career in the legislature, I opposed these things. In 2016, I believe, there was a proposal brought forward that put limitations on the voucher program that currently exists. It had to go to accredited schools. It had to go to schools within the state of South Dakota. And there was one other requirement, which I agreed with. And so I voted for that. Oh, yes, there's a cap on it of no more than $2 million. I support that. As of right now, and this comes through the insurance tax, and it's kind of a complicated thing. And Phyllis Heineman was the big pusher when she was in the legislature for it. I generally support it with those requirements. But there's never been more than $500,000 donated by insurance companies, which get a dollar for dollar rebate on their insurance tax. So until we get up to $2 million in insurance companies, I think we just let the current program, leave it as it is. I do not at the current time favor any expansion of it. I'd consider it if we went to if we ever got up to $2 million in contributions.
Jamie Smith.
And I'm just going to say that we support our public education systems. We believe the dollars should go to the schools, the public education and public schools. That being said, people, if they want to make the choice to go to private schools or have those, they can do that. But we still don't even adequately fund our public schools in this state. So I can't vote to take money away from our public schools so somebody can make a choice to go to a private school.
Let's shift to the environment and specifically waterways in this state. 80% of our waterways, our rivers and streams and lakes in South Dakota, 80% of them have a serious deficiency. About 300 feet in that direction is the Big Sioux River, one of the most polluted rivers in this part of the United States. How concerned should we be about having polluted waterways in South Dakota, and what should we do about it?
Yes, we should be concerned, first of all, about polluted waterways. We need to do more with
Buffer strips.
The buffer strips. Thank you from a guy in ag. But we can do a much better job with things like that, and encouraging those farming practices to do that. Also, to be hard on businesses that dump into the river. You should not get a free pass to dump things down the river. And so we can't do that. But I do believe buffer strips have worked in other areas and other states. And I think that's one step that we can make to make sure that we're not sending things down our rivers.
Jim Bolin.
And I would essentially agree with Representative Smith. I would say this, though, is that we have a voluntary program in South Dakota. Just across the border in Minnesota, they had a mandated program. And there was one of the reasons that rural Minnesota is turning more red or more Republican is that many farmers do not like the idea that they're going to be mandated and forced by government to participate in this buffer strip. But I certainly favor the voluntary approach, and if we need more incentives, I would certainly be willing to look at those.
The governor has proposed a merger of the Ag Department and the Department of Natural Resources. So the department that is in charge of just this very issue. And that joint department would be under Secretary Hunter Roberts. Does it make sense to combine those two departments in South Dakota, Ag and Natural Resources?
I oppose that, and my caucus opposes that. Joining that together, we need that check and balance, I believe, in somebody watching that. I mean, I think they work very closely together, but I want to keep them separate.
Jim Boland?
And I would say I'm undecided on that. I haven't really studied that. I'm not an Aggie. So I would, I have some fundamental questions about it. I think it's something that needs, perhaps, it definitely needs more explanation. And if you ask me to vote on it right now, I'd be undecided. That's what
And it will be up to the legislature
Yes.
to approve that, correct?
there does have to
Even
be,
though Hunter Roberts today is the secretary over both departments.
there has to be, to the best of my knowledge, there has to be a legislative approval of that combination. Yes.
Let's talk about the legalization of marijuana. We have an initiated measure on the ballot that would legalize medical use of marijuana. We also have a constitutional amendment on the ballot that would legalize recreational as well as medical marijuana. What's the position of the caucuses on those two measures?
Medical for sure. We've gone down that path, and I believe that we're in agreement on that. We have within my own caucus, there's a mix on the recreational, on individual's choice on that. Personally, where I've come to believe on that now is I think in talking to so many people, eventually here we need to figure out a way to tax and regulate that rather than be putting people in jail for marijuana and those types of things. I think we need to figure that out. And so I'm neutral right now on the recreation.
Jim?
No.
Boland?
I used to conclude my classes in Canton on Friday afternoon by saying, have a safe and sober weekend for the high school students when I was taught there for many years. I'm opposed to both of these measures. I think I maybe understand a little bit about medical marijuana, but we absolutely do not need recreational marijuana in South Dakota, and we certainly don't need it in the South Dakota Constitution. Just think, we're going to put a bill or in a form like that in our Constitution. That makes no sense at all. The idea that we're going to have in the South Dakota Constitution the legalization of marijuana, that's an affront to the most basic political document of the state. And I would certainly hope that whatever your position is on, I think it's 26, the medical marijuana, that you would have, that everyone would have a respect for the basic political document of the state and vote no on Amendment A. So I've already voted, and I voted against both of them, and I certainly pushed real hard on the pencil in Lincoln County when I put the X next to Amendment A, vote no. That's just an affront to the most basic political document of the state, that you'd put legalized marijuana in the South Dakota Constitution. Leave it at that.
South Dakota has among the toughest drug laws in the entire country. It is a felony in this state to ingest certain controlled substances and narcotics. A felony. The ingestion, not the sale, not the purchase, but to have it in your system, you can be convicted of a felony and sent to state prison. Is that appropriate?
I don't believe it is appropriate, and I think we need to work on that. I am on the Corrections Commission, and we are looking all the time at what can we do better in our state. And I know that one thing that we cannot do is incarcerate our way out of a drug problem. Just by putting people in jail, we haven't solved the problem. We need treatment. We need treatment options for people, and it's going to have to be long-term, and it's going to have to be tough, because meth is one of those drugs. Meth is the big one, and it's not an easy thing to get off of. We're filling up, people's lives are being ruined by this drug. And by putting people in jail though, and not getting the treatment, if you're sitting there thinking the whole time you're in jail about getting that next hit, when you get out, what are you going to do? You're going to go get another hit. And so we need to work on that, and we're actively, that's something that we're working hard on.
Jim Boland?
Yeah, I think the ingestion law, I believe we're maybe only one or two states that have that particular law.
I believe we're the only one.
They're the only one. Probably should be changed. I haven't really got very involved in that issue, but it probably should be changed.
Let's talk about transgender rights. Regardless of the person's age, should transgender individuals have the same protections and rights as those of us who identify with our gender of birth?
Definitely.
Jim Boland?
My comment on that is that how far, at what point in time do these claims start interfering, for instance, with high school athletics, different things like that? Do you want a situation where a biological male is playing on a girls' athletic team? These are fundamental questions as to the nature and character of life and society. And this is a profound claim, again, as to the nature and character of human life and human society. I don't want to badger anyone or it's a sensitive issue. I understand that, but at the same time, this issue really starts to get into the heart of who we are as individuals. And so I definitely do not believe that biological males should be participating on sports teams designed for girls.
Jim Bowen, who should resolve this issue?
You know, I'd like to see
the
Activities Association. It's probably, right now, I can just tell you this, because I follow this a little bit. There are lawsuits in the state of Connecticut where biological males participated in girls' athletic competitions, set like 14 new state records, these type of things. And so these young ladies and their parents have sued the Connecticut Athletic Association, and now it's in federal court. And we will see how this all plays out. I think ultimately this probably will go to the United States Supreme Court, and it'll be decided there at some point in time. And that's probably the best place it should be decided. But at the same time, an individual state, the state of Texas, for instance, their Activities Association, Athletic Association, passed a law that basically said biology matters. If you are biologically male, you participate in male sports. If you are a biological female, you participate in the category that's designated for you. Girls basketball has a smaller ball to play with. Girls track has a lower hurdle to clear. Girls golf has a different tee box from which they hit. So this is a question that I don't really enjoy talking about that much, but it strikes at the very heart of who we are as individuals. I'll leave it at that.
Jamie Smith.
I would just like to go back to your original question, though, of what the fundamental right for those people, and I believe that's for those families and their physicians to make those calls for an individual that is in that situation.
Let's talk about the Second Amendment. Right now, the President of the United States is saying that Democrats want to eliminate the Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. I know that certainly the Democrats in South Dakota have favored certain controls that have been opposed by Republicans. Where do your respective caucuses stand on gun rights versus gun safety, gun restrictions, whether it's possession or otherwise?
I'll still take that one to start since it's a hot button. We voted in our legislature to get rid of carrying permits for concealed carry. I believe the number was 87% of South Dakotans didn't favor that, but the legislature did. We voted to conceal carry in the Capitol. My recommendation was to get metal detectors. Don't worry about concealed carry. Guess what? As soon as we got concealed carry in the Capitol, they put in the medical detectors later. It doesn't make any sense to me. We need to make sure that if people are not stable, if they shouldn't be carrying a gun, they shouldn't be. I'm not trying to take everybody's gun away when I vote for those bills. I, about every other year, get a hunting license. I'm not an avid hunter, but I do it. You know, we have a state that people have firearms. I'm not trying to take away those people's guns, but we are trying to make sure that people are a threat to themselves or others don't have them.
Jim Bowen?
Yeah. Well, I'm a member of the NRA, but I did vote against the change in the law that was passed. So Representative Smith and I was one of few Republicans in the Senate who voted against it, because I just would like to, I think the gun laws in South Dakota are pretty good. Just leave them as it is. But I do believe there's an effort by certain elements of the party which Mr. Smith's a member of, that they would love to see America disarmed as it is in Australia and in other countries in the world. And one of the major checks that I believe our founding fathers brought to us was the notion that you have an individual right to own a firearm. And that was confirmed by the United States Supreme Court, the 2008 Heller decision. And so I have no doubt that if Joe Biden gets elected president, there will be efforts, and if the Democrats gain control of both houses of Congress, there will be efforts to place major restrictions on firearms in the United States. And that's what has many of us concerned.
Jamie Smith, do the Democrats want to disarm American citizens?
The South Dakota Democrats are not trying to disarm South Dakotans from being able to hunt, being able to legally possess a firearm. What we do want to do is we want to make sure that the people that are a danger to themselves or others don't have access to those firearms. Suicide rates in South Dakota are really high. One of the reasons is the easy access to handguns in our state. It's evidence that people that try to commit suicide using a gun get the job done. And that frightens me. It frightens me for families. And it's not that necessarily the responsible gun owner that I'm worried about. It's the irresponsible gun owners out there that don't teach their children and the respect necessary for a firearm.
Let's talk about abortion. In all likelihood, Judge Amy Coney Barrett is about to be confirmed on the U.S. Supreme Court. There is a real possibility that Roe v. Wade could either be overturned or revised in a dramatic fashion. What would your caucuses do regarding abortion in South Dakota if Roe v. Wade is overturned or dramatically revised?
I'll take that one. I mean, the Senate Republicans in South Dakota are not unanimously, but the vast majority of us who are in the South Dakota legislature are pro-life. I believe Roe v. Wade was wrongly decided. I believe this should be an issue that's left up to the states as it was prior to 1973. And in South Dakota, I believe there would be a major effort made to return to the standard that was in South Dakota prior to 1973. In fact, I believe there's actually a trigger law in South Dakota that says that if Roe v. Wade is ever overturned, we automatically go back to the standard that was there before January of 1973.
Jim Boland, what was that standard?
I can't. It was restrictive, very, very restrictive. And but
so, do you think that abortion should be considered a criminal offense in South Dakota? That women as well as doctors who perform abortions in South Dakota, do you think that should be a crime?
Not. The female needs assistance and encouragement, and I say this as a father of 2 children by the process of adoption. But medical professionals who now are being flown in from Minneapolis to perform this particular procedure, they should face criminal prosecution.
But not the mothers.
Not the mothers.
Okay.
We have a very different stance on this, but I want you to know that the Democratic tent, we have both pro-life and pro-choice people that consider themselves Democrats in the state of South Dakota. That being said, I believe that this is a super tough issue, but abortion should be rare but legal. A woman has that right to choose between herself, her doctor, and her clergy. And I don't think the government should stand in the way of that. I'm a realist. Abortions happened prior to Roe versus Wade, and they didn't have a safe place to have that medical procedure. The other thing is, I get tired of each and every year we have a bill that does something to tweak the abortion language in our state that's already very restrictive, just to raise funds from the pro-life group. And that drives me absolutely crazy because you don't get to sit down and talk about the actual issue.
Let's talk about ethics and conflicts of interest. Are there sufficient ethical and conflict of interest standards for elected state officials and state employees and the means to uphold those standards?
Karen Soley, representative from District 15, worked really hard a couple of years ago to put forth that ethics task group that was put together. I think that was a step in the right direction. And I think that as a legislature, we're aware of that. The interesting thing in the legislature is we cannot remove ourselves from any vote within the legislative process. It's either a yes or a no, and you can't abstain from a vote. And so are there times that people get put in a tough situation on certain things? I believe there probably are. But you have to vote yes or no. And there's no way to abstain from that vote.
I would generally agree with Representative Smith on that issue. I think that, I mean, I vote, I'm a retired school teacher. I vote on pension bills as far as the South Dakota legislature. I get income, it's all in my financial disclosure reports. I get money from the South Dakota retirement system at the present time. So if you're going to have a part-time legislature that meets 40 days of the year, I always tell people it's a full-time job January, February, March, kind of a part-time job the rest of the year. There's going to be circumstances and situations that you're going to face that you're going to be kind of put in a tough situation. And but you have to make choices as to how you're going to vote and live with it. And if the public doesn't appreciate what your stand is, they can vote you out in the next election. That's the nice thing about South Dakota. Everybody's elected every 2 years. So we're up, you know, we'll be up in 2022. I don't know if I'll be running again, but everybody's up every 2 years.
When voters assess candidates, whether they're running for the state legislature, for local state office, national office, how important do you think are the elements of integrity in assessing candidates? That is their character, their honesty, their morality, their decency, their empathy. How relevant are these character issues in assessing candidates?
I really do think as a voter that you need to get to know who you're voting for. And I believe that all of those things that you just mentioned play into how that person's going to make decisions. And we make really important decisions for the state of South Dakota each and every day that we're in the legislature. And I would think that you would want a person with integrity doing that.
Jim Boland?
I think it's very important, and I think it is a major factor as far as how people vote. I think generally speaking, a lot of these legislative races, especially when you get outside of Sioux Falls, they're not as intense as they are here in Sioux Falls. I represent territory south of the city of Harrisburg, so and I don't have any opponent this time, but it's very important that you maintain your integrity. And the other thing too, I believe though, is it's very important that you demonstrate competence in understanding at least most of the issues. You have to be able to maintain competence, especially if you've been in for a number of years. That's very, very important, because most people with term limits in South Dakota, most people, I've been in now for 12 years, most people don't serve nearly as long as I do. They serve 6-8 years and go back to something else. But I'm a former government teacher who really likes this stuff, so I'm sticking right in there.
What we've seen here in the last 45 minutes is that we practice civil discourse in South Dakota. And I want to commend both Jim Boland and Jamie Smith for clearly stating where they're aligned and respectfully delineating where they differ. This is something I think we should be intensely proud of as South Dakotans, and I want to thank them both.
And I'd like to thank you for hosting a forum that we can do this. Jim and I have conversations like this actually quite often.
Absolutely.
Even just sitting in the Ramkota hallway before an issue. And I consider Jim a friend of mine. I hope he considers me his friend as well. We have a lot of similar interests. We differ on things, and that's okay. And that's okay. And I want to model that behavior because my kids aren't getting that behavior modeled on a national level. So thank you.
And I'd just like to add too is that, you know, Pierre is not like Washington, D.C. It is not. It is, there's differences and there's questions and people vote differently, but there isn't the rancor and I would say the intense partisanship that dominates Washington, D.C. Actually, there's probably a bigger difference between urban and rural and East River, West River than there are Republicans and Democrats in Pierre.
So to close this out, I'd like to try an exercise in bipartisan collaboration. Last week, when Judge Amy Coney Barrett was before the Judicial Committee, she was asked by Senator Ben Sass of Nebraska to name the 5 freedoms protected by the First Amendment. So those are the first 45 words of the Bill of Rights, ratified in 1791. So you two are, hang on one second. You two are welcome to collaborate on the response here. It's not that you're going to demonstrate that you are smarter than Judge Barrett, but on this particular issue, can the two of you come to tell us what are the 5 freedoms protected by the First Amendment? Judge Barrett could only name 4 of the 5.
Okay. All right.
That appeared to be a closed door.
Closed caucus.
Closed caucus.
Came to the Republican caucus for the first time.
I had to walk down the hall, I had to beg to get in the room, and then they let me talk. That's how it happens. No.
Okay, so you're going to be the spokesperson?
No, as a Democrat, what I like to do is find the expert to talk about issues that they really know about.
Okay.
And there's no doubt in my mind that this man right here, the number of years he taught government, he probably could recite the whole thing to you, but he's just going to tell you the 5.
Okay.
Easy for Jim Bolin.
Okay. The first one is freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of assembly, and freedom of petition. Those are the 5 basic rights that are included in the First Amendment.
And Judge Barrett, the one she missed was petition. It's the right to petition the government for a redress of grievances. And Judge Barrett is brilliant, and she did an incredible job on the stand without a single note in front of her. But when it came to the First Amendment, she did miss one of the 5 freedoms.
But not Jim Bolin.
But not Jim Bolin. So here's what I'm going to do for the two of you. I have in these bags, and I have one bag for each of you, I have 2 coffee mugs, and all 45 words of the First Amendment are inscribed on these coffee mugs, courtesy of South Dakota Newswatch. And so you can take that back to your caucus and make sure everybody understands the 5 freedoms, and I know Jim Bolin will do the same. Okay. Please join me in thanking these 2 gentlemen.
Jack, thank you for hosting today, and Senator Jim and Representative Jamie Smith, thank you for this